have you ever wondered what really goes through a man's mind in the most intimate moment of all? The moment he finally releases inside you. It's one of those questions that almost no one dares to talk about openly, yet it sits quietly in the back of our thoughts. Because here's the truth, sex is not just about mechanics. It's not just about positions or rhythm or how long it lasts. That one moment when he surrenders completely reveals more about him, about his connection to you, and about the depth of intimacy in the relationship than almost anything else. And if you've ever wanted to understand men on a deeper level, if you've ever wanted to know what he's really feeling when he lets go in you, then listen closely. Because what I'm about to share with you is every man's inner world, the secret no man explains, but every man experiences. Now, let me make something clear from the start. Every man is different. His feelings in that moment depend on his maturity, his emotional connection, and yes, his true intentions. For some men, it's just a physical release, an act of pleasure and nothing more. But for others, for the man who sees you as more than just a body, this moment is layered with psychology, vulnerability, desire, and meaning. And here's a twist: even the man who pretends it's casual often feels things he didn't expect in that moment. So let's break this down. I want to share with you 5 key truths about how men feel when they release inside you. Not from a place of shallow fantasy, but from a place of honesty and depth. So you can use this knowledge to understand him, to connect with him, and to see past the mask that men so often wear. K.1T. Release is surrender for a man. That final moment isn't just the climax of sex, it's the climax of control. Men are wired to carry tension in their bodies, in their minds, in their lives. They're taught to hold it in, to stay composed, to be strong. But when he releases inside you, that is the one moment where all of that control shatters. It's the one time where he allows himself to fully let go. And make no mistake, surrender is not natural for most men. Think about it. Men walk through life in competition mode, at work, at the gym, even in social interactions. They're conditioned to win, to hold back vulnerability, to keep their armor on. But in this intimate act, he can't hide. In that moment, whether he knows it or not, he's telling you, I trust you enough to see me without my armor. It's primal, it's raw, and it's deeply revealing. And here's where it gets interesting. If a man truly cares about you, this release doesn't feel like he's losing control. It feels like he's finally safe enough to stop controlling. With you, he doesn't have to be the leader, the protector, the one with all the answers. He gets to just be. That's why for so many men, this moment is not just about physical pleasure, it's about emotional freedom. Now, does that mean every man feels this way?
No.
Some men don't see sex as emotional at all. For them, it's a way to burn energy, a way to feel alive, or simply a habit. But even in those cases, there's a crack in the armor, because no matter how much a man tries to hide behind casualness, in that final second, his body betrays his heart. He may not admit it, but he feels something vulnerable, something human. And that's why women so often sense more in that moment than he wants to reveal. Ladies, here's the deeper truth when a man releases inside you. What he feels isn't just about pleasure. It's about trust, vulnerability, and surrender. If he lets you close enough for that, you're not just another woman in his life. You're someone who reached past the armor. Now, let's go even deeper, because this is where the conversation shifts from the obvious physical mechanics to the hidden emotional weight behind it. Too often, we trivialize this moment, reducing it to pleasure, to release, to biology. But for men, whether they consciously admit it or not, releasing inside a woman is one of the most vulnerable, identity-shaping experiences of intimacy. And if you truly want to understand male psychology, attraction, and emotional bonding, you cannot ignore the truth of how men feel in that split second and long after. Here's the second key point for a man. Finishing inside a woman represents a transfer of trust. Think about it. Biologically, he knows the risks. He knows that this act carries with it the weight of responsibility, pregnancy, protection, the potential for creating life. And even if every precaution has been taken, the psychology of it runs deep. When a man allows himself to release inside a woman, it's not just a body doing what it's designed to do. It's his subconscious acknowledging, I trust you with my most vulnerable self. That's no small thing. When women ask me, why does it feel so different for a man when he finishes inside versus not? The answer is that one carries a symbolism of complete giving. To finish outside may still bring him pleasure, but it lacks the same intimacy, the same emotional weight. To release inside says, I am not holding back. I'm not protecting myself with a barrier of distance. I'm letting go in the most unguarded way possible. That moment bonds him whether he admits it or not. Now, here's what makes it fascinating. Not every man interprets that bond the same way. For some men, that trust deepens his feelings of connection. He will look at the woman differently afterward, not just as a partner in bed, but as someone he's shared something deeply personal with. For other men, however, particularly those who are emotionally avoidant, it can trigger fear. That sudden rush of vulnerability may terrify him because in his mind, he just exposed himself in the most primal way, and instead of feeling closeness, he feels panic about what it means. This is why so many women get confused. They'll say, "But we just had this incredibly intimate night. He finished inside me, and yet the next day he seemed distant." And it breaks their hearts because they interpret that as rejection. But here's the truth: his distance isn't necessarily a lack of attraction, it's the result of the vulnerability hangover. He felt so open in that moment, so exposed, that the next morning his instinct is to retreat, to put his walls back up. And this brings us to our third key point. The moment a man releases inside a woman often carries with it an unconscious sense of commitment. Whether he voices it or not, his body is screaming something his mind may not even want to admit. On some level, he knows this act mimics what creates family, legacy, and future. He may not be thinking about kids in that moment, but his biology is, and biology doesn't lie. So after the fact, men often feel one of two ways: either profoundly connected to you, as though you now share an invisible bond, or conflicted because his action said, "I want you completely," while his mind wasn't prepared for what that means. This is why some men withdraw. It's not that they didn't feel something powerful, it's that they felt too much. And in their panic, they convince themselves that pulling back is safer. But here's where women get their power back by understanding this dynamic. You stop taking his withdrawal personally. You realize that his reaction is more about him wrestling with his own vulnerability than about you not being enough. Let me give you an example. A client once told me that every time she and her boyfriend got intimate and he released inside her, he would become unusually quiet afterward. She used to spiral, thinking maybe he regretted it, maybe he wasn't really into her. But when I had her actually ask him about it, his answer shocked her. He said, "It's because it makes me feel so close to you that I almost don't know how to handle it. I don't feel that way with anyone else, and it scares me." You see, his silence wasn't rejection. It was awe, and awe often comes out clumsily in men. Now, let's go to the fourth key point for a man. Releasing inside a woman amplifies his need for reassurance. It's counterintuitive, isn't it? You might think that moment is when he feels powerful, dominant, in control. And yes, there's an aspect of that. But right after, there's often a fragility he won't admit to. It's the moment he secretly craves your embrace, your kiss on his chest, your words that say, "I love that, I loved being with you." Because in his mind, he just gave you something he doesn't give lightly. Even if he's had many partners, the act itself carries a subconscious weight. And if you meet that with tenderness instead of silence, you magnify the intimacy tenfold. This is why couples who don't talk about sex often miss out on its power, because what happens in the bedroom isn't just about bodies. It's about psychology. It's about the stories we tell ourselves in those vulnerable moments. And men, though they often pretend to be stoic, are flooded with stories in that split second. Stories about whether they're enough, whether you really wanted it, whether they satisfied you, whether this act will make you see them differently. If you want to unlock a man's deepest devotion, learn to meet that moment with both physical connection and emotional affirmation. Now, the fifth key point, and this one is profound for many men, releasing inside a woman awakens their deepest longing for legacy, for love, for belonging. This doesn't mean every man wants kids with every partner, but it does mean that his biology is wired to associate that act with continuation, with meaning beyond the present moment. And if he feels that act was shared in love, not just in lust, it ties you into his vision of future, even if he doesn't articulate it. Conversely, if he feels it was mechanical, transactional, or disconnected, it can leave him with an emptiness that lingers longer than the pleasure. This is why I always tell women, never underestimate the power of what you share in that moment. It's not just sex, it's not just release. For him, it's identity, it's legacy, it's trust, it's intimacy. And it's either going to be the moment that bonds him to you more deeply than ever before, or the moment that scares him into realizing he just exposed himself in ways he wasn't ready for. So let's summarize where we are so far. It's not just about pleasure, it's about vulnerability. To release inside is on a subconscious level. to give trust. That act carries a symbolic sense of commitment, whether he admits it or not. Men crave reassurance afterward, even if they'll never say it out loud. This moment awakens his deepest longings for connection, meaning, and legacy. And we're only scratching the surface, because what happens after is just as important as what happens during. And in the final batch, I want to show you how to use this knowledge to build the kind of intimacy that keeps a man not only physically invested, but emotionally and spiritually tied to you in a way that he cannot walk away from. Let's get brutally honest here, because this is where we separate the surface level bedroom chatter from the truth men won't ever tell you. When a man releases inside you, he isn't just feeling the climax of his body, he's experiencing a climax of trust, vulnerability, and connection. And yet, most women miss the deeper meaning because they're taught to only think of it in terms of physical pleasure or protection. But here's the reality for a man. Finishing inside a woman he genuinely cares about is the single most intimate act he can perform. It's his way of saying, I'm giving you all of me, physically, emotionally, biologically. Think about this for centuries. Sex has been framed as something physical men chase, while women protect themselves from being used. But the truth is, when a man chooses to release inside you, what he's actually doing, whether he's conscious of it or not, is surrendering control. In every other area of life, men are expected to control themselves, to contain their emotions, their weaknesses, their fears. But in this one sacred moment, he lets go completely. And if he trusts you, if he loves you, that release becomes the most profound act of safety he can feel. K.40 release is about security and belonging. This might surprise you, but men don't just feel pleasure in that release. They feel a sense of home, a sense of belonging. When he's inside you and allows himself to finish there, what he's really saying is, I feel safe enough to not hold anything back. And men rarely feel this kind of safety in the world. Out there, they're constantly judged, constantly competing, constantly told to be stronger, richer, smarter. But inside of you, literally and figuratively, he's allowed to just be. That is why the act feels sacred. That is why it bonds him to you on a primal level. But here's the catch: if that act is given too soon or without genuine intimacy, it can backfire. He can feel empty, even resentful afterward. Why? Because his biology screamed intimacy while his emotions weren't aligned. And that dissonance can make him pull away. This is why understanding how men truly feel about this moment is so powerful, because it helps you see the difference between a man who's just chasing release and a man who's using release as a way to connect deeper with you. K.5e, the aftermath matters more than the moment. Now let me share something most women don't realize. The moment after he releases inside you is the most revealing window into his heart. Does he hold you? Does he soften and melt into you? Does he look you in the eyes and smile? Or does he roll over, check his phone, and disconnect? Because that aftermath tells you everything. For a man who is truly invested in you, that release doesn't mark the end of sex. It marks the beginning of closeness. He'll want to stay inside you longer. He'll want to wrap around you. He'll want to communicate without words. I'm still here. I'm not leaving. But for the man who only sees sex as a physical act, the moment after release is also the moment he retreats. That's why so many women are left confused, thinking sex would bond them closer, only to feel distance immediately after. The truth is, the physical act can't manufacture emotional intimacy. It only amplifies what's already there. And if what's already there is love, trust, and security, then releasing inside you will feel like a sacred ritual of unity. But if what's already there is just lust, boredom, or ego, then that release will feel empty, even depleting. Let's bring this home. Men may not verbalize these feelings, but every time they release inside a woman, they're communicating something, sometimes consciously, sometimes subconsciously. They're saying, I want to connect, or I feel safe, or sometimes, sadly, I just wanted to escape. Your job isn't to decode every nuance, but to notice the pattern. Does he consistently use intimacy to draw you closer, or does he use it as a way to disappear afterward? And here's the empowering truth: the way you carry yourself in that moment matters too. If you treat his release like a transaction, something you gave him, then it stays shallow. But if you treat it like a mutual act of trust, of intimacy, of unity, he feels chosen. And men crave that feeling of being chosen more than anything else. More than sex, more than praise, more than success. They crave to feel like the woman they desire most is saying to them, I want you fully, all of you. So the next time you find yourself in that moment, remember what happens inside your body is also happening inside his heart. Men aren't robots. They don't just climax and move on. They feel everything: pleasure, safety, vulnerability, fear, love. And that release magnifies it all, which is why when done with the right man, it can be the single most intimate experience two people share. Let's bring this all together, because everything I've shared with you isn't just about sex or about that one physical act of a man releasing inside of you. It's about the bigger picture. It's about what that act represents. For a man, climaxing inside a woman is the most vulnerable expression of trust, connection, and surrender. But for a woman, it's often the clearest sign of how safe, chosen, and deeply wanted she really is. And when those two truths collide, when he feels like he can let go, and you feel like you are the one he trusts enough to receive him, then intimacy stops being physical and becomes something sacred. So let's revisit the 5 keys we've uncovered. First, we talked about trust, that primal sense of safety a man needs before he can allow himself to fully release. But without trust, intimacy feels mechanical. With trust, it feels transcendent. Second, we went into validation, how a man's orgasm inside you makes him feel wanted, accepted, and powerful in his masculinity, not rejected or diminished. Third, we explored emotional connection, because when he gives you that part of himself, it's not just about the body, it's about knowing his presence, his love, his essence is fully received. Fourth, we touched on identity and pride, that deep masculine need to feel like the protector, the lover, the one who truly satisfies and completes you. And finally, we uncovered bonding, that undeniable attachment that grows when two people cross the invisible line between casual sex and soul-deep intimacy. These aren't just theories. They're truths you've probably felt in your own life, even if you couldn't put them into words. You've probably seen the way a man holds you tighter after he's released inside you, the way his breathing softens, the way his eyes search yours for reassurance that it meant as much to you as it did to him. You've probably felt that post-intimacy glow where the air feels thicker, warmer, and suddenly you're not just two people lying side by side. You're connected in a way words can't capture. That's the secret. That's the moment every man craves, even if he never admits it out loud. And here's the part I want you to take with you. Sex, at its best, is not about performance, it's about presence. It's not about did I do it right, it's about was I fully here. If you want to know how men feel when they release inside you, remember this: more than pleasure, more than climax, more than the fireworks, it's the feeling of being allowed into your inner world, the feeling of being trusted with the deepest part of you. That's what shakes him to his core. That's what stays with him long after the sheets are cold. So what do you do with this? You use it not as a game, not as manipulation, but as a reminder of the incredible power you have in intimacy. When you invite a man into you, not just physically, but emotionally, you give him an experience no porn, no fling, no casual encounter can ever compete with. You become unforgettable, not because of what you did in bed, but because of how you made him feel after. And let me say this clearly: a man may forget the words you said, he may even forget the details of the night, but he will never forget how you made him feel in that moment of release. Did he feel safe? Did he feel desired? Did he feel like he was finally allowed to let go and be himself without judgment? If the answer is yes, then you've given him something he'll crave for the rest of his life, whether he's conscious of it or not. That is every man's secret. Not the orgasm, not the climax, but the connection, the validation, the unspoken message of you are enough, I want you, I receive you. When you give him that gift, you don't just win his body for a night, you win his heart, his trust, and his loyalty in ways words can't explain. So as you move forward, remember this speech isn't just about sex, it's about intimacy, it's about human connection, and it's about using those private moments to build something lasting. Next time you're with a man you care about, I want you to see his release not as the end, but as the beginning of a deeper bond, the beginning of a love that feels unshakable, the beginning of knowing you have a power no one else can replicate. Because at the end of the day, intimacy isn't about bodies, it's about souls. And when you understand how men really feel when they release inside you, you hold the key to unlocking the kind of relationship most people spend their whole lives searching for. So go create that connection. Go make him feel safe, seen, and wanted. And in return, you'll find yourself loved in a way that never fades. That is the secret. That is the power. And now it's yours. If this message struck a chord with you, don't let it stop here. Carry it into your life. True intimacy is not about technique alone. It's about connection, presence, and the courage to show your partner just how much they mean to you. If you want more insights like this that transform not just your love life, but the way you experience relationships, then subscribe right now, turn on the notifications, and join me every week. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who deserves deeper love and intimacy, share this video with them today. The relationships we build are only as strong as the wisdom we share